Welcome to the KayaCast, the podcast for cannabis businesses looking to launch, grow, and scale their operations.
Wally, thank you so much for joining me today.
Tommy, it's a pleasure, man.
What are some of the biggest common issues that you find that growers may think that they're doing well, but actually there's so much more that they can do?
Oh, that's a great question. I have the benefit of saying it's been a while since I've had, just dumpster fires, so to speak. But I will reference that. Generally, it's like, if I'm going to reference examples from the past, generally it's like it's almost like a proselytizing religious individual, like this, I'm doing it this way because I know this is the way, and yet not acknowledging that, like, you are below kind of industry benchmarks, whether we want to call it a pounds per light or a pounds per square foot metric, and you got a whole lot of additives that are unnecessary, and it's actually your boss who hired me to audit all these practices because it costs too much and we're not making enough weed. And I would say that's a more common archetype from my past, and generally it didn't work out well for the individual unless they could have a personal growth moment, which I would kind of segue into the maturation of my business. And what I feel like my purpose is in consulting a lot is that sort of people personal growth moments. And like you said, the good entrepreneurs that I have the opportunity of working with, like presently, and have had the most fun and best results with, are those who are like, I know that my way is not the way, and or that I need help finding the optimal way. And I got an extra passenger seat here and passenger seat here. Do you want to get in for a while? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can see when you talk to any grower, their stuff is the best stuff. So there's a lot of ego in this game, right? And you kind of have to have that from a marketing perspective.
Yeah. I mean,
So I can see that being a problem if that bleeds into operations as well.
yeah, you're right. I mean, that trickles down in the culture, and then we're blinded to what can be really obvious impediments to our success. And I'm just saying that almost sounds like a truism, but I'm just speaking from my own experience, and then full circle to like upbringing and being told that by people I respect. And you kind of commenting on it now, like, yeah.
See, I have with the advent of LLM models now and the internet, I have the advantage of pretty much having a consultant in my pocket.
Right.
And I talk to Claude every day about, we're doing this, what is the best practice, how are other companies doing it? And we're always evolving best practices and just taking in as much information as possible and using it or applying it if it fits our business. But in the space of agriculture, especially in cannabis, it's not there. And you have to have somebody like yourself to come in, because you've seen so many different, you're the Claude, right? You're the chat, right? You've seen so many different environments. You've helped so many different grows that you can summarize your experiences into this particular situation and give them the best practices. So I always think about like today versus like which industries benefit the most. Definitely my industry, because things are very public in the tech space, but in your industry, not so much.
It's true. Yeah, it is true. I'm glad you brought up AI. That's definitely a huge contemporary consideration. I will say I'm pretty stoked on what I've got to experience, help implement, or colleagues of mine implementing AI in their various businesses as a vendor. But to your point, I still, like for me, it's Chat GPT, right? I utilize it as a lovely tool and a trustworthy assistant. But I will, to your point about ag or horticulture in general, I'm still reaching out to a trusted colleague for my final vetting. Like I recognize my own ego or how I could get too reliant on what seems like a very rosy and efficient information gatherer. Yeah, I still think with living systems, yeah, a living person at the end of the day is who I want to have my sort of final vetting moment with. Yeah, and those cumulative experiences within that human brain.
I couldn't agree with you more in how much of a science and an art that plant is. It's so different than any other plant in the world, you know? It's kind of like magic how things happen. I was talking to a grower and he explained to me kind of the plant itself, how it grows, all of these things. And I remember that conversation. He just said, this is a very different plant than any other plants in the world. It's kind of like voodoo, which you're like, well, how can you be consistent? How do you have a crop
Right.
that is consistent crop over? That must be such a thing to chase that it's so hard to do, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, I certainly recognize the sentiment there. I would say, yeah, scientist Wally, because I do a lot of other agricultural stuff too, and I like, consulted on other crops and helped with other hydroponics. I will agree with you that, like, yeah, it is a super special plant and there are nuances, but at the end of the day, it is still a plant that we're growing, just supercharged. To me, scientist Wally is like the challenge is how many damn varieties right? How many damn varieties they are and the nuances per, countless varieties. So to your point, and as we discussed before recording, it's like we can lock in the science of all the parameters we know, all the parameters Claude and ChatGPT will tell you and me both right now after this call, like this is what you should do for optimal substage of growth per cannabis. But at the end of the day, it's a living system, and a keen observer of the plant, of the particular variety, who's seen a bazillion other varieties and their sort of growth patterns is going to be able to, I think, better achieve the consistency run over run of the same variety. Um, you know, better than a machine, right? To put it that way, or it's a challenge, and
Well,
there has to be some sort of passion behind it, right? That I think is the artist, right? We talked about a little bit earlier, but the passion to keenly observe said living system, to catch those nuances, and then back to the engineer Wally, shit can just go sideways. Something might break. A key environmental control element or something like that, right? So just being on it, again, and I think of the fastidious artist or the passionate artist. You're on top of it in the context of this highly engineered scientific, management system for a living.
what is your typical customer archetype? Do you primarily work with customers that have systems in place, they've been growing for a while, and they want to improve, or somebody that's just starting out and looking to scale their operations?
Another great both and. Even presently, at time of recording, dear listener, I have early stage, right? Let's model this with sensibility from the get-go, like, oh, I just got money or I'm close to having money. Wally helped me out with your expertise, and then my sort of either stable of go-to consultants or my network of very trustworthy, seasoned professionals. Also, I have very mature market folks with systems deeply in place. And again, back to answer your question pointedly, the archetype there who's usually reaching out to me is a savvy business person or savvy entrepreneur, like, hey, we're doing good, but I know I could do better. And I heard about you, or, someone directed me to your website, or I was searching online and I found you. Can we have a conversation? Like, sweet, discovery call, low hanging fruit. Let's get after it.
So I want to talk about both. Let's
Sweet.
say I was somebody that, I have a background in maybe the gray market, and
Yeah.
I want to build, or I just got funding and I'm building out a legit facility. what are some of the questions I should be asking myself to not waste hundreds of thousands of dollars
No doubt.
in the future, right?
Yeah. Because I like keeping it simple. What is it that I need and nothing less, right? I'm a parent, right? So it's like sometimes some of my language sounds like I'm talking to my kids. What's a need versus what's a want?
Mm.
What's a flashy thing that's an industry kind of distraction or shiny object versus what do I need to just make consistent quality product so that I can have a successful business?
How do you
It
differentiate
sounds
between the
boring, but
two?
that
Yeah. But
I'm,
how would you differentiate between the two if you're starting out and you're now analyzing the equipment to buy?
right. Um, Great question. Let's say let's work on how reverse it. Excuse me. Back into what we need to produce, right? Like what? Okay, great. Sounds great. You got some money. Presumably, you already got a financial model. What are we saying we're going to make? What size and scale is required to make that? And then how do we build out that scale with the appropriate systems, the appropriate standardized practices that all of our staff is going to agree upon to guarantee what we said to either our investor, our friends and family, whomever, to make good on the promise.
Have you seen what are some common pitfalls that people that are just starting out get themselves into in terms of equipments that they're purchasing or some of the maybe the goals that they have that may be not sustainable
Right,
or maybe too expensive to carry out or not profitable, for example?
right. Let me, I can tackle a couple of those. I think the one that comes to mind most quickly and that I think I've seen the most, because, and I will reference some of my background and experience again more. I get a lot of like second or third cleanup or turnaround. Some of those terms I don't like because they have a negative stigma. But where I'm going with that is unvetted advice, unvetted vendors, unvetted mechanical engineering, plumbing, air quotes, experts. I guess preventable mistakes in just building out the system by someone who was not vetted. Furthermore, it's a touchy subject, but I say it because I think it's good advice. Going with it's like, oh, my bro's done this, or my family member's done this, and just ignoring the reality that like that's likely not scalable. This person actually doesn't have a lot of experience, and the model and the systems they're putting forth are not best practices. Yet we're gonna blow a bunch of money on it. Yeah.
That's really sound advice.
Sorry
That's
about that.
exhausting.
It's like I take like a sober tone there, but like I mean, it's reality. I'm sure a lot of listeners can will
Well, nepotism and
yeah.
trust is
Ooh,
weighed so high in our industry
yeah,
versus the actual vetting of people that
yeah,
are going to help us grow, and also the people that are responsible for millions of investor dollars.
for sure, for sure. That's a super touchy one, and but it's sensible at the end of the day, and I have a lot of conviction, and I think I have been hired. I can think of at least a couple of cases where I've been hired to be that vetting entity for ownership or leadership that recognizes we might have some nepotism going on, or like we might be making buddy decisions, not business decisions. Yeah, that's real,
Mm.
and been there, helped with that. Not afraid to go there either, right? That's we got to get through the storms to have the sunny skies.
hmm That's so true. So if I was first starting off, the first thing that I should do is make sure that I have really good counsel, make sure that it's vetted,
For sure,
that these people have done it before, and I'm relying on past experiences. They're not learning on the job
no
per
doubt.
se,
Yeah, yeah.
and that I'm building out the right team.
Couldn't
Now,
agree
I would
more.
imagine that head growers are very hard to come by.
You make a joke there. I think you're all right. Yeah, I think I just got off a different call today where, yeah, a recruitment specialist was talking about the current state of uh, the voluminous application quantity of anytime a head grower post is
Yeah, but
posting
then,
this.
sorry, really good head growers are
Okay.
hard to come by.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was like, let's figure out if this is a joke or not. Yeah, I think you're right about that. Hmm.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
how would somebody vet a head? That's probably the most important position.
On the cultivation side of things, yeah, a good leadership in the captain's seat of the cultivation production area, absolutely. Great question. You kind of already said it. You kind of summarized what I was already getting at, right? Like, have they done this before? Have we talked to folks they've worked with before? I'm basically going to say a bunch of things that are just different iterations of like, have they done this before with reproducible results, right? Scientist Wally and business guy Wally, just asking those kind of rhetorical but also literal questions, and then not being afraid to do that vetting or sub out that vetting to someone. Again, this person I'm talking to is a very esteemed colleague in recruitment globally. Maybe you hire someone for a peer-to-peer vetting, because maybe you or me as the entrepreneur or the ops person is not. We know what we're skilled at and what we're not. Maybe you have a trusted confidant or counsel, to your point, where you could say, "Hey, can you connect this person? Because I know they're probably going to be more real with you because you speak the lingo."
Hmm.
I think that's a really good exercise. I've seen that to be. I've witnessed that to be very effective.
That I want to pivot a little bit on.
Hmm.
Let's say I have operations already. I've been running for a while. I know what I'm doing,
Yeah.
right? What are some, or if you can share with us some stories where somebody came to you, their operations were running smoothly, but these were some of the things that you've helped them implement that really increased their yield or consistency. Like how would I, as an operator, spot that these are some of the low-hanging fruit improvements that I can implement?
Yeah, that's a great question. What comes to mind most quickly, and I think will be relevant to most listeners, is, and I'll even add again, sorry to do like run-on sentences and prose, but I think people generally know if their tech is dated. Like even if it's just basic tech, like lighting or fertigation systems or something like that. That I think is a good place to start. Generally, we're not as we don't feel as vulnerable just being like, dude, I know I'm rocking lights from 5 years ago, and perhaps it's worth a capital investment to upgrade them, or maybe there's a pathway to get some rebates and get better lights. That's just one easy example. But if I'm going to give some practical anecdotes, is similar to that. A local client here in Oregon with a retail establishment and 2 farms, just a little bit of that. Like, hey, I know I've got some old tech. I've already done the capital investment, and I've got a few rooms in the new tech. I just need help wrapping my brain around implementing this, most effectively. Because I know I can do better, but I'm not quite doing it better presently. Can you help out? Your network, that kind of thing. And simply put, that's been highly effective. The person I'm referencing, we're easily able to increase yields just by dialing in the tech, utilizing the tech support to its full potential.
What do you mean by you utilizing the tech properly?
Um, Great question. For instance, fertigation systems, especially with new AI assisted plugins and stuff, just having the conviction to work closely with that vendor to make sure we're just running the system to optimal standards as presented by the manufacturer or the vendor. Kind of doesn't sound very sexy. I'm trying
No,
to make that
honestly,
sexier. I'm trying to
the
make that
thing is,
sexier, but I think you're about to say what I'm going to say. Yeah.
yeah, the thing is with businesses, it's a 20-mile march. And
I
if you
mean,
think that there's a silver bullet that's going to magically increase your yield by 100%, then you're in the wrong game. because you're setting yourself up for failure, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
often the boring stuff that that makes businesses run or grow.
yeah, yeah. We're failure and disappointment, I think, is what results what you were talking about for sure.
It's funny because I see that on the other side too. I oftentimes see entrepreneurs buy technology. So, say a loyalty program, for example, or even our platform or whatever, and not invest the time to learn what is the value and what is the problem that this company is trying to solve?
Totally.
Why does this company exist? And am I extracting as much value as possible out of the money that I'm paying this company? So oftentimes, you'll have the people that are really, really well-run operators, small percentage of them, maybe 20%, that are just fanatical on extracting the values from their vendors. And the rest of the 80% is just tip of the iceberg in terms of their utilization. And I'm guessing that that's rings true in your industry as well.
I think so. Yeah, and in many cases. Yeah. Trying to think of some specific examples. I'm just having a relatability moment. And then I identify as one of the ones to have the conviction to utilize all resources put forth by a company like yours or an analogous one to you, because they're set up to help. The best ones are set up to help you succeed. There are people, I've said this in my narrative a lot with new clients. There are people getting paid to help you, you're paying me to help you, like basically just get the conviction, like you can call the engineer on staff anytime. They are getting paid to respond to you and troubleshoot things. And to your point, help you extract the maximum value out of what they're providing. Right. And
It's
you
kind of
feel
our
me?
job. That's
Yeah,
that's what
your
we want.
exactly. I'm like, utilize it. We don't have to just stand by idly, like, why are we paying this whatever expense per month? It's like kind of helping. I'm like, no, it's definitely helping, but we can dive deeper. There are people there to, add even more value.
What are some of the what is the, lack of a better word, most fun project that you've worked on
Most
that you can
fun,
share?
most fun project I've worked on. I mean, I hesitate a little bit, but I shouldn't. I really like problems. Okay, I think that's why I've had good feedback as a consultant, as a general employee. So it's generally the massive problems that I think about when you ask me a question about where, for instance, I'm not gonna like name names or companies, but for instance, coming into a situation where there were some errors in the design of the facility, we're handicapped in a few key means of maintaining temperature and humidity, and there is probably every pest under the sun because the integrated pest management system or approach is lacking or very reactionary, and everyone has said, hey, burn this down, start over.
Mm.
You know, I'm referred by an esteemed accounting professional for this job, and I like being able to come in with the experience I have and be like, all right, yeah, this is dire, but we can overcome this. And there are some practices that we put in place, and we put our heads down and we all agree to a standard schedule to, clean these bugs up, prevent this mold, scrub this mold up from ever happening again, invest in like redo the math on, the facility design and make the case for, yeah, actually, it's not just me consultant saying this, my HVAC professional saying this, my other friend who's been growing for longer than me says the same thing. And we'll fix it. I think the project I'm referencing fits in that category of favorite ever. The problems are opportunities to me, and I try to, yeah.
What was the work involved in fixing that? What was the equipment that was needed to replace, and how much did they save, not breaking the entire thing down, but more or less
I'm gonna think of
renovating?
I'm gonna think of two different projects just to make this conversation a little more scintillating as I'm talking about like problems and sober issues. Um, the work involved in, like, let's say the pest cleanup, I'm referencing, a handful of months, but and a lot of hours, especially on behalf of the integrated pest management team. And I mean, we're able to salvage a lot of that crop for derivative products. So to answer your question, kind of conceptually, not a just total, hey, we have zero revenue or we have like zero output for, because if you start over, right, that's several months. So, you know, you can kind of infer there. Otherwise, let's see, equipment needed, project I'm referencing there, a couple more really large rooftop units, right? Upwards of, you know, more than 30 tons of cooling capacity. Yeah. So,
Wow.
but that's what it took.
Yeah.
And
And it's better than the alternative, right? Just blowing things up and
yeah, just,
starting completely over.
struggling with a lack of control and therefore a lack of consistent output. Like that's
So what was
generally a business killer in the more mature markets, right?
so what was the decision-making process of that company, as much as you can share, in how did they design their facility that bad? And what were some of the warning signs that, hey, this is not good?
Great question. Again, I'm going to tread lightly. Back to vetting those in charge of the design process. I think just some assumptions were made based on theory and not practice, and then, you know, pretty massive errors and omissions just in the design process, which wasn't as professional and high and tight as I think
I've
you
always,
and
I've
you
always wondered. I've always wondered this, and we were talking about it before, where cannabis is very different than other plants, but it's still a plant.
Mhm.
If you were to compare like the cannabis facility to another plant that shares the same problems as cannabis, what would be? Is there another plant that you can compare that? Hey, this is more or less a good blueprint of how you should set up your operations.
Good question. My mind goes to, you know, high-tech tomato greenhouses, just because I've worked in some of them and some big fancy and some fancy ones domestically. You know, I like the company. What is it? Plant Empowerment. The engineers over in the Netherlands. Yeah, it's like tomatoes and cucumbers. You know, listener, I'm not saying weed is like directly like tomatoes and cucumbers, but a lot of the sophisticated systems around growing those year round have similar tech, and there's even more. Almost like it's almost an example of how fastidious I think we could be for capturing data, because there's such it's a slimmer margin crop, so there's even more detail and engineering around, you know, greenhouses and supplemental lighting for those type of crops.
There's
So it
something to
comes
be said about that for me, because the cannabis industry is such a small industry that it's not, as a vendor, there's not a lot of R&D or not a lot of money that somebody can specialize their equipment to. And as an industry that's in its infancy, you gotta look outside of the industry to learn
for sure.
and take best practices and bring in.
Yeah,
That's for software too.
I love that you brought that up. Yeah, I am. As I referenced my interest in general ag, I have a pending certification with the American Society of Agronomy, where I had to, you know, I have to know about other crops and how to recommend them. And then certainly there's, at the end of the day, it's a plant that we're growing in an organized way for production purposes. And we can stand on the shoulders of academic giants like American Floral Endowment, floriculture in general. Like you're saying, there's already best practices in how to grow massive amounts of these things in a very controlled way with consistent output, right? We get into poinsettias and everything's got to look the exact same. Yeah, great point. And I couldn't agree more. And I do lean on my just general horticulture and ag network all the time to help with expense reduction hacks, or again, they've seen more things go sideways under the sun in the context of a different crop where the stakes are higher because of margins are slimmer, right? So there's, yeah.
Before we do rapid fire questions, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to share with our listeners?
Great. Nothing's coming to mind. I'm like super conscious of time. No, if anything, I think I clarified. I think I was able to, talk a little bit more of my background organically throughout. Just, I have been in the trenches, so to speak, cannabis production and the whole value stream since 2011. And professional and associated professional development. So those kind of, I think that more promo stuff.
Well, you've been helping so many grow ups since, I always say that 5 years in cannabis is a lifetime, and you've been doing it since 2011. So a few lifetimes.
Yeah, there's some lines on my face, that indicate that for sure.
We have a new segment called Rapid Fire Question.
Wow.
Owen, our producer. And the purpose of this is really for us to get to know you better. So get ready for this.
I'm going in blind, listeners. I'm going in blind.
Rapid fire questions. Okay, when was the first time you tried cannabis?
Oh, great. First time I tried cannabis, 8th grade.
8th grade.
8th grade.
Same as me. THC or CBD?
THC.
Daytime or nighttime consumer?
Daytime. End of day, to be clear.
End of day. Favorite strain or terpene?
Oh, lovely. These questions are great, by the way. That's my initial feedback. Okay, I got my start in Mendocino County. I'm still just I'm a gas lover. So to this day, diesel crosses, bring it on all day long. Yeah.
I love diesel too.
Cool.
I love diesel too. What's one thing that you changed about the cannabis industry right now?
Oh, geez. Change? That's a tough one. I genuinely celebrate the industry, and I think it is evolving in the way I think it should change. It's been kind of a theme of this conversation. So I don't know if I have to say I would change. I'm trying to be the change of, hey, we can have fun. This is a rad plant. We can have fun using it, but let's professionalize our systems and our approach, so that the consumer and all of us benefit consistent quality, et cetera.
I agree with you.
Was that cool? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's we're in the infancy of the industry. Right?
Yeah, and I appreciate people like you inviting me on. I feel like I really do feel it. I'm feeling it in my body right now. There is a synergy and among us. Hey, we do utilize this plant. We do celebrate this plant, but we realize, hey, it is a business. We're maturing as people and a culture. We gotta be adults about producing it a little bit. Yeah.
What's one piece of advice that you would give somebody, an entrepreneur looking to get into the cannabis industry?
Keep a sober mind. And I mean that I don't mean that literally, I'm not saying don't consume cannabis or substances. I mean, just here's something I like saying a lot. Just make sure you're reconciling the romance with the reality. And and something you said earlier is very important. I recognize and also celebrate the romance of our brand and our approach to selling ourselves or our company, but just stay grounded in the reality of what it takes. And again, down to the business of the numbers and making sure we're making accurate forecasts and as best we can, sober projections of what we can do.
Wally, I want to give you some space to really talk to or describe your company in 30 seconds. What you do, or maybe yourself.
Great. Elevator pitch. Here we go. Green Garden Consulting, based in Oregon. Primarily tackle anything related to plants, processes, and people. Plants is plant health, fertility, quality assurance. Processes along the whole value stream, commercial standards and practices, and all the devils in the details therein, to guarantee consistent output and consistent delivery of value to our consumers. People, which I list last a lot, but a lot of people say, hey, you might want to put that first. And as you recognize from this conversation, people in the sense of leadership, culture, chain of command, to get into some of the details there, but leadership, culture, and basically coordinated organizational elements, right? A holistic approach to a business is also a living system, kind of like we're nested microcosms in this cool cannabis metaphor. Also consult in that realm as well.
Guys, if you guys are looking for a company that can help you with consistency, because I think consistency is the name of the game, particularly in the space,
Yeah.
then your reputation precedes you. So definitely check out Wally.
Cheers. Yeah. QC/QA is near and dear to my heart. And I should mention I have an engineer on my team who's been in botanical extraction, especially cannabis, for a very long time, and a quality assurance specialist, manufacturing specialist, and very talented formulator, also having done this a long time. So we're boutique, but we're agile and we're friendly, and we like delivering results.
Wally, for people that are listening that want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
My website is greengardenconsulting.org. If you fill out that form, it comes directly to me. Search for me on LinkedIn. I can provide you with my email address right here, or you tell me any other way. But
yeah, definitely. And we'll link it to the pod too.
Great. My contact info will be in the podcast. I'll even put my direct number on there. I'm not afraid. Reach out. I hope listeners, Tommy, I think you've given me good feedback. I hope you see I'm an approachable person, and about results.
Wally, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, Tommy. Thank you, man.
Thanks for listening to the KayaCast podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcast app, or visit our website to access the full archive of episodes from the show.